Imagine you go to retirement, you've done such a great job, you've done your planning, you've done your tax planning, you've even done estate planning. You have a trust in place, which is a beautiful instrument, but then you pass away. And as you're looking down from the pearly gates, you see that inside of your trust, it's now caused almost 40% of your entire life savings, your thrift savings plan, to go to the IRS and not to your beneficiaries. How would you feel? Hi, I'm Micah Shilanski, and this is the FERS Federal Fact Check. We got a question in from Brady that talks about TSP beneficiaries, and this is such an important thing because in our top 7 mistakes that federal employees make as they're preparing for retirement is failing to have good beneficiary designations, and this potentially could be a good question for that. So his question is, if my TSP beneficiary is currently my trust, then upon my death, will that transfer be made as a one-time full payment minus 20% for taxes? If so, would it be better to have my spouse named as the beneficiary? If it is going to a trust now, mainly the reason that if we both pass, then some of it will go to charitable contributions and other to my 2 children. And if she's the beneficiary when we both pass, then my kids get it, and all the charity gets is nothing, which we don't want. That is a great question. Now, this has to do with several different components that are going on. This is also where I say I'm not an attorney, so this isn't legal advice, right? We're going to talk about the concepts of estate planning that we talk with our clients about. Then it's really important to bring in a qualified expert, an attorney who specializes in estate planning. I don't want a general family law attorney that, oh yeah, by the way, I can do estate planning too. Generally, that may not work out when we get into complex things like trusts, and trust can be complex. All right, so let's talk about this. Now, the trust in which he's talking about more than likely is what's called a revocable living trust. What a revocable living trust is good news is it's revocable. It means while you and your bride, your spouse are alive, you can make any changes to it that you like. Once you both pass away, now it's irrevocable because you two have passed away. And now whatever you specified in your trust is what's going to happen. Now, I love trusts. They're beautiful. They are a great way that we can set things up to go out to our beneficiaries. But there's a few requirements. Number one, if you have a trust, you have to fund your trust. So just creating a trust by itself doesn't do anything, right? We have to put stuff into the trust. So there's 2 ways in which we fund a trust. The first way is by title. But we transfer things into the name of the trust. So this could be your house, could be a great example. Generally don't do cars unless they're really high valued vehicles. Most states have like a de minimis. If your car is worth less than $70,000 or $100,000, it passes kind of without a probate issue. If it's worth more than that, maybe we should look at a trust. This could be land, so any type of real estate property. This could be bank accounts. This could be investment accounts, not retirement accounts, investment accounts. Those things we can transfer in title kind of today. There's no tax consequences normally with changing the title on these. If I had a Schwab investment account and it's in my name, I say, great, now I want it in the name of my trust, I can do that pretty easily, which works out well. The same with my house and land, etc. Now, if you do transfer the name of your house and it has a mortgage on it, you want to be a little cognizant of how that's going to work. Most of the time it's fine, but just a pro tip, I would watch out for that. So first we're going to transfer by title. Now, that happens while we're alive. If we can't transfer by title, then the second way is by beneficiary designation. Now, beneficiary designation, this would be for like your retirement accounts. So your thrift savings plan, your IRAs, your Roth IRAs, all of those things, you would want to transfer these via beneficiary designation, not via title. Why? Taxes. If you went into your TSP account and said, hey, I want it in the name of my trust, what would you have to do? You would have to pull all of that money out today, pay whatever taxes and penalties on it, then you could put it in your trust. Well, that's probably a really bad idea, right? We'd be giving so much money to the IRS in taxes. So we have a beneficiary designation set up. But the question is, what's the best way to do this? Should I name my spouse as the primary beneficiary? Then the trust is contingent. Where do I put my kids in here? How do I do that? A couple of quick caveats on a trust as a beneficiary. The trust must be designed to handle retirement accounts. If you have a trust that is not designed, and I see this all the time, but if you have a trust that is not designed to handle retirement accounts, what happens is you have your thrift savings plan, which is great. and let's say you've done just an amazing job. You have $1 million that's saved inside of your TSP, which is just outstanding and great. And then you leave your beneficiary to your trust, but your trust is not designed to handle retirement accounts. There's special language that it has to meet. It's too complex to talk about it in a YouTube video. So, but you got to meet with someone that really understands this. Let's say it doesn't meet those requirements. What happens? You lose your tax deferred status. That means all $1 million comes out of the retirement account, goes to the trust, and has to be taxed at the trust level. This is very, very important. Individuals, people like us, we have a progressive tax system. The more money we make, the more taxes we're going to pay in dollars and percent. To be in the top tax bracket, you got to be making well north of $400,000, $500,000 a year. A trust hits the top tax bracket around $15,000 in income. So boom, almost right away, that $1 million gets subject to a 40% tax. Yes, I'm rounding, but it's pretty much 40%. So now you have $600,000 that's inside of your trust. You don't have $1 million by setting it up this way. Now, I do appreciate how patriotic you are in helping funding our national deficit, but you don't have to take it on alone. So this is an option, but that's definitely not what we would recommend most of the time. Couple things we'd want to see different with most of our clients. Number one, the primary beneficiary is the spouse. Why the spouse? The spouses can inherit retirement accounts differently than a non-spouse beneficiary. There's some exceptions to these rules, but the short answer is if I die and my wife is my beneficiary, my spouse is my beneficiary, she's going to get the money, and now she has a couple choices. She could leave it in my name, she could transfer it and put it in her name into her IRA account. Okay, well, what's the difference? Well, let's say I am 60 years young and my wife is 55. Well, if I die with $1 million in my retirement account and she transfers it into her IRA, when can she access it without penalties? 59 and a half. She's got to wait 4 years, 4.5 years, right, before she could access that money without penalty. But if I die, and let's say I die at 50, right, and my wife is 55 years young, when can she access my retirement account? Right away. A spouse can access an inherited IRA account right away without penalties. There's going to be taxes, but no penalties. So I want to give my spouse the most flexibility possible with how she's going to receive distributions. So 99% of the time, I want my spouse as the primary beneficiary. Now, there could be some Medicaid issues, there could be some spendthrift issues, there could be some other reasons and why this isn't a good idea. This is a solid 90% idea, but you really got to be careful applying this to your situation. All right, so that's number one. Number two, my contingent beneficiary, I really like to see my trust. And this is personally how I have my assets set up. Now, when my assets go, it is actually designed to hold retirement accounts. We have set the trust up where it can hold retirement accounts properly. So what does that mean? I die, all of my assets go into my trust. Now, my trust is the center focal point of all of my estate planning. That's how my spouse can access the money. That's how my kids are going to get the money. That's how charities are going to get funded. And I really like this because now what happens, I have my home, I have my real estate, I have my retirement accounts, everything points into the trust. And now my trustee, that's the person in charge of this. Quick question, what's the root word of trustee? Trust. Someone I trust very well that's going to administer this the way I would like to can now make decisions. It's the cornerstone of my estate plan. I'm a huge fan of these when they're done correctly. So if both my wife and I pass away and I want one of my beneficiaries, maybe I want some of my beneficiaries to be my kids, maybe I want some to be my grandkids, but you know what? Maybe I want some to be charity as well. Well, perfect. I can designate all of this inside of my trust. And now what happens when all of these assets come in properly, my trustee can use their judgment in how to administer those assets. And why is this? I'm sorry, I'm going off on a geeky tax portion. I apologize. There's so much to unpack right here. But why this is so important is I have different types of assets. right? I have these particular types of assets, which might be after tax. I have a retirement account, which is pre-tax. I might have a Roth IRA, which is tax-free assets, which are there. Maybe I want these to go differently. Here's a quick example. If I had $1 million, let's say I had $2 million in my estate, and I wanted $1 million to go to charity and $1 million to go to my kids, because I want to make this super easy. Perfect. That's what I want to do. I got a $2 million estate, $1 million in IRA accounts, and $1 million in everything else. Well, which do I want to go to charity? Well, if I left my IRA or my TSP account to my kids, when they take the money out, are they going to have to pay taxes on it? Absolutely, right? It's a pre-tax investment. They're going to have to pay taxes on it just like I would if I got the money. Okay, so that's one option. What about the Roth money? If I leave my Roth money to my kids, do they get that tax-free? Absolutely. It's a tax-free asset. What about my house and my land and my bank accounts, my other investments? If I leave that properly to my kids, they get this after tax, so they're going to have very little potential taxes on that money. But what about charities? How much taxes do charities pay? Zero. Charities pay no taxes. Okay, well, I got this giant taxable asset right here. Now my trustee can say, hey, charity, you're going to inherit this TSP, you're going to inherit this IRA or a portion of it, and now they get all of that money tax-free. And now my kids are going to get the Roth IRAs, the bank accounts, the house, and all of these other things, which are all after tax or potentially tax-free money. Now we've just beaten the IRS out of $400,000 in taxes by properly designing your estate plan. And this is so, so important. This is why we can't go to some general attorney to get this drafted. Most attorneys, in my experience, they don't have a great grasp on tax law. I did a great interview with this guy, Rod Zeeb, who's a premier estate planning attorney, and he echoes the same thing. You really have to find one that understands tax laws and estate planning to bring this mix together. So, Bradley, to your question, sir, the trust is a phenomenal asset. One, make sure it's designed to hold retirement accounts. Two, you really want to make sure or think about having your spouse as your primary beneficiary, your trust as your contingent beneficiaries, and then I like to go across the board, look at all of your assets at the same time. Let's make sure it's designed correctly. If you have a question like this or a concern about how do I apply this to my personal situation, then jump on our website, planyourfederalretirement.com. You can shoot us a comment, you can request an appointment so we can sit down and talk about this. Until next time, happy planning.